The camp once stood here. The buildings familiar to Liddell were bulldozed long ago. Gone is a whitewashed church. Gone is the bell tower and the rows of dormitories. Gone also are the watchtowers with arrow-slit windows and conical tops, like Chinese peasants' hats. The Japanese called it a civilian assembly center, a euphemism offering the flimsiest camouflage to the harsh truth. A United Nations of men, women, and children were prisoners alongside Liddell, rather than comfy guests of Emperor Hirohito. There were Americans and Australians, South Americans and South Africans, Russians and Greeks, Dutch and Belgians and British, Scandinavians and Swiss and Filipinos. Among the nationalities there were disparate strata of society. Merchant bankers, entrepreneurs, boardroom businessmen, solicitors, architects, teachers, and government officials. There were also drug addicts, alcoholics, prostitutes, and thieves, who coexisted beside monks and nuns and missionaries, such as Liddell. Weishin housed more than 2,100 internees during a period of 2.5 years. At its terrible zenith, between 1,600 and 1,800 were shut into it at once. The place already had a past. It had previously been an American Presbyterian mission. Born there was the Nobel laureate Pearl S. Buck, who wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel The Good Earth, which made China less mysterious to the millions who read it in the 1930s. Henry Luce, founder of Time and father of its subsequent empire, lived within the compound as a boy. The Chinese had christened it Liddell Yuan, Courtyard of the Happy Way. The Japanese left the phrase chiseled across the lintel of the grand entrance, as though mocking those forced to pass beneath it. Awaiting them to deter disobedience or escape were armed guards, some with German shepherd dogs on chain leads, and an electric fence. A trench, dug 6 feet deep, came next. A man's labor can become his identity. Liddell testifies to that. Before internment, he worked in perilous outposts in China, dodging bullets and shells, and always wary of the knife blade. After it, he dedicated himself to everyone around him, as though it were his responsibility alone to imbue the hardships and degradations with a proper purpose and make the long days bearable. The short history of the camp emphasizes the impossibility of Liddell's task. In the beginning, the camp was filthy and unsanitary, the pathways strewn with debris, and the living quarters squalid. The claustrophobic conditions brought predictable consequences. There were verbal squabbles, sometimes flaring into physical fights over the meager portions at mealtimes, and also the question of who was in front of whom in the line to receive them. There were disagreements, also frequently violent, over privacy and personal habits and hygiene, as well as perceived idleness, selfishness, and pilfering. Liddell was different. He overlooked the imperfections of character that beset even the best of us, doing so with a gentlemanly charm. With infinite patience, he also gave special attention to the young, who affectionately called him Uncle Eric. He played chess with them. He built model boats for them. He fizzed with ideas, also arranging entertainments and sport, particularly softball and baseball, which were staged on a miniature diamond bear of grass. Skeptical questions are always going to be asked when someone is portrayed without apparent faults, and also as the possessor of standards that appear so idealized and far-fetched to the rest of us. Liddell can sound too virtuous and too honorable to be true, as if those who knew him were either misremembering or consciously mythologizing. Not so. The evidence is too overwhelming to be dismissed as easily as that. Amid the myriad moral dilemmas in Weishin, Liddell's forbearance was remarkable. No one could ever recall a single act of envy, pettiness, hubris, or self-aggrandisement from him. He bad-mouthed nobody.